Is the American dream dead or just being rebranded? Young Americans say they're overworked, underpaid, and fed up. For much of the last century, the American dream was painted as a straight road to success. The script was clear: graduate high school, maybe go to college, land a stable job, buy a house, get married, raise kids, retire comfortably, and look back proudly at a life built on hard work. For generations, this was sold as not just possible, but almost guaranteed if you played by the rules. Fast forward to 2025, and the mood among younger Americans couldn't feel more different. For Millennials and Gen Z, the American dream looks less like a promise and more like an expired coupon, something their parents cashed in on, but no longer redeemable in today's economy. Talk to a millennial in their late 20s or early 30s, and you'll likely hear a story of working multiple jobs, juggling student loans, and feeling permanently behind in life milestones. Many are still living with roommates well into their 30s, not by choice but by financial necessity. The idea of owning a home, once the centerpiece of the American dream, feels laughably out of reach for millions. Rents are climbing, wages are stagnant, and inflation has turned even basic groceries into a monthly stress test. One young worker described it bluntly: "We're not living. We're surviving. Every paycheck disappears before it even hits my account." Gen Z, entering the workforce in a similar storm, has watched millennials struggle and decided to change the script. Instead of chasing a life that feels impossible, they are redefining success entirely. Side hustles, digital nomadism, content creation, and flexible lifestyles are replacing the old 9-to-5 pathway. "We're not lazy," one young creator insisted. "We're just not going to break ourselves to live a life we don't want." The older generations often argue that every era had its challenges. They point to times of war, recession, or double-digit interest rates and say, "We had it tough too, but we pushed through." But younger Americans counter with a different perspective. Yes, previous generations faced hardships, but they also had affordable education, lower housing costs, and jobs that provided long-term security. Today, college often comes with crushing debt, housing prices soar faster than wages, and job security feels like a relic of the past. The once inspiring phrase, "hard work pays off," has, for many, been replaced with a bitter joke: "Work hard, stay broke." It's not that millennials and Gen Z aren't working. Many are hustling harder than ever, freelancing, gig working, streaming, and grinding through corporate jobs simultaneously. The problem is that the payoff doesn't match the effort. For every extra hour they work, there's another bill waiting to swallow it. Nowhere is this generational tension louder than online. On TikTok, hashtags like #anti-work, #lazygirljobs, #bare-minimum-Monday, and #quittalk rack up millions of views. Videos range from workers exposing toxic bosses to creators glamorizing remote life from Bali, coffee in hand, laptop by the beach. The tone varies. Some are humorous, others frustrated, many empowering. But they all echo the same frustration. Young people feel trapped in a system that demands endless productivity without offering stability in return. Boomers and Gen X, however, often flood the comments with criticism. "You think life should be easy? We worked long hours too." The digital divide becomes a generational shouting match, with neither side willing to concede the other's point. And yet, this debate has pushed work culture into mainstream conversations. Terms like quiet quitting and acting your wage have entered office boardrooms, sparking heated discussions between managers who want maximum output and employees who refuse to sacrifice mental health for meager paychecks. The new dream. What makes this moment unique is that millennials and Gen Z aren't just complaining, they're reshaping what the dream even means. For some, success is no longer measured by homeownership or climbing a corporate ladder but by freedom, flexibility, and personal fulfillment. Travel, remote work, and building online brands are considered more valuable than buying a 3-bedroom house in the suburbs. Others are doubling down on entrepreneurship, seeing traditional jobs as traps that enrich companies but leave workers drained. The rise of e-commerce businesses, YouTube channels, OnlyFans accounts, and TikTok shops shows that many young people are building their own versions of financial independence, even if it looks nothing like the stability of their parents' era. This shift creates cultural friction. Older Americans often scoff at influencers making money online, calling it unserious work. But for younger people, it's proof that the traditional formula isn't the only route anymore. If I can make 6 figures making content instead of sitting in a cubicle, why wouldn't I? Asked one 24-year-old creator. Perhaps the most striking difference between generations is how young people openly reject the glorification of hustle culture. Previous generations were raised to see overwork as a badge of honor. Millennials and Gen Z see it as a ticket to burnout, depression, and a life unlived. Instead of clinging to the promise of retirement decades away, many want to enjoy life now. They prioritize experiences, mental health, and flexibility over loyalty to a company that could lay them off tomorrow. Critics say this is short-sighted. Supporters say it's the only rational response to a broken system. At its core, this debate isn't just about money, it's about values. What does success mean? What do we owe to society versus what society owes to us? And most importantly, who gets to define the American dream in the 21st century? Older Americans often see younger generations as entitled. Younger Americans see older generations as out of touch. And between them lies a widening gap in how the future should look. Will the American dream die with the boomers? Or will millennials and Gen Z write a new version? One that values freedom, balance, and creativity over white picket fences and endless work shifts? As the cost of living continues to rise and younger Americans reshape cultural norms, the real question may not be whether the American dream is dead, but whether it has simply evolved. Is the new dream about owning less but experiencing more? Is it about rejecting grind culture and finding balance? Or is it about tearing down the very idea of the dream itself, replacing it with something entirely new? One thing is certain, the conversation isn't slowing down. It's on social media, in workplaces, in families, and across dinner tables. The debate itself may be the new American tradition. So, is the American dream dead, or is it just being rebranded by the very people who refuse to inherit it as is?